Happy Friday morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Joshua Stir here with 3MFAers podcast, actor, director, mover, video game extraordinaire. And I'm here with my bestest buddies from school, Caleb and Brandon.
What's up? I'm Brandon. I'm from Toronto. I'm an actor. Went to school with these guys, and we got our MFAs there. And I'm excited to talk about Shawshank. I'm also feeling a little miserable today because I'm all stuffed up. So get ready for that action. Caleb?
Hi, I'm Caleb John Cushing. I'm an actor, a writer, and a filmmaker, and I'm also bald now. And I have to say, if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence about it for yourself personally in your personal life, and you're like, I just can't do it anymore. I can't deal with shampoo and conditioner and combs and gel and mousse and style. You just shave it, buzz it all off, and you will reach your final form, and you will become the ultimate peak perfection of your life, and you will realize your power. Just shave it all off. It feels good.
Yo, I thought about it. Change up the type, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the only thing now I need to get all new headshots and change my entire marketing angle. Wow. That's okay, though. I really thought I was going to be like, I'll look exactly like Jason Statham, and I don't. I look like a fucking fat baby.
Caleb, what's your new angle on type, or what are you going for? You said Jason Statham.
No, obviously I'm not going to be able to do Jason Statham. I have no idea. I truly don't know. If they ever remake American History X, I guess I can do that.
That's a great movie. That's a great movie, man.
Sure. But it's a pretty good one.
That might be Ed Norton's best.
Yeah, I don't know. Better than like The Incredible Hulk from 2008. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just gonna say, are you sure?
No, Ed Norton has a Fight Club. What are you talking about?
Fight Club. I put Fight Club and American History X very close together. Like Fight Club's probably the better movie, but those are
I don't know.
Those are both very, very good movies. Primal Fear, the early one. Whew.
Primal Fear. Was he in Red Dragon? He was which Hannibal Lecter movie was he in?
Red Dragon was the prequel, right?
Yeah, I think that was the one. Whichever one he was in, he was good in as well.
I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, Ed Norton's pretty good. Apparently, he's like an asshole though. He's like one of those guys that nobody likes.
All the Avengers movies and stuff, right?
Well, I think he just wanted like way more creative control than I think he just expected to be more in charge of that stuff than anyone wanted him to be. And Mark Ruffalo was like, "Yo, I'll do whatever."
Mark Ruffalo seems like the man. I love that dude.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a cool guy for sure.
So minus the cold, Brandon, everything good?
Yeah, everything's good. Just hoping things start up again soon. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been trying to work out some new monologues, things like that. Talk to people, get things ready for when everything's open. But, just trying to stay safe and healthy and relaxed and, all the important things right now.
We got some, like, bummer news the other day.
What?
You and me. About Cannes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I actually, that wasn't, it could have been a lot worse. I was being a dick about it. But
what about the Cannes Festival? You guys were going, right?
So me and Caleb were supposed to go to the Cannes Film Festival as part of the 3 days in Cannes program for, I can't remember, whatever the hell it is.
3 jours de jour en Cannes. I don't know. I don't speak French.
So, that was supposed to be, we were supposed to be coming back now.
You were supposed to. I got my little. I never unsynced it to my iCloud or whatever. We were supposed to get on a flight back like today.
Exactly. So So that would have sucked. But the rule is you can only go up until you're 29, and so I turn 29 next month. So in the email we got, they said obviously that doesn't count this year. You just reapply.
So the issue was because of coronavirus, they shut it down and then they canceled it. And so for people like me and Brandon,
I'm sorry if that was not clear. the issue is that Corona shut it down.
Well, no, I just mean like because we were all like set to go. We were like looking at like we had like a hotel and we were looking at plane tickets and everything. Like it was happening, and then they delayed it at first, and then they finally canceled it. But they basically sent out an email yesterday or 2 days ago saying like, you guys like you'll have to reapply again, but we'll put people who were accepted this year in special like priority consideration, and don't worry about aging out, because we'll still, if you would have been 28 for this time and we accepted you, we'll still let you.
Also, like,
that's good.
As for the application process, like, we did it and heard back in what, 3-4 days, a week maybe.
I remember you heard back a few days before I did, and I was starting to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, but it wasn't that big of a gap.
No,
like, it was all pretty quick.
It was like a few, like 4 or 5 days. It wasn't even.
There was definitely that awkward moment of like, shit.
No, I mean, I obviously would have been very happy for you, but I also would have been really angry. Not at you.
So you guys just go and you're able to view the to just view the festival and to see everything there, or what?
Yeah, and like
a networking thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a networking component to it for sure. And they give, but they give you like access to pretty much almost everything.
Yeah, you get press badges.
So, yeah. And I think it's a really generous move to be like, we care about the younger generation who appreciates this stuff, and we want to like kind of reach out to young professionals and film enthusiasts to get them involved in this world. Because like, I think we were talking about this on another episode, but like for a lot of film festivals, you can just as a normal person like buy tickets to go, but Cannes is invite only. So so this is a really cool way to kind of get new people in, you know?
Yeah, like I think we were talking about this, but
totally.
Like, even at TIFF every year, they just sell tickets. Like everybody goes to TIFF movies every year because they're playing everywhere in Toronto, you know? I never thought about that with Cannes, but so interesting that they do that.
Yeah, because they're European,
I think it's a good
they
way.
Want to be like prestigious.
Yeah, and I feel that especially with we went to the studio school. What's that? Are you guys doing your French?
Yeah, but we're listening. Sorry, Josh.
No, it's fine. I can wait.
No, we're done.
Plug for a different podcast really quick, but you have to listen to this. It's on Bert Kreischer's podcast, Bertcast. He has Ben Schwartz on.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, and he's just digging into Ben Schwartz about like writing and like asking him all these questions about and they get really into rewrites and fixing scripts and that type of thing. It's and I mean, I love Bert Kreischer too, and then I obviously love Ben Schwartz as well. But it's an amazing podcast to listen to because they're it's just enthusiastic and they're talking about writing. So I would check it out if I were you.
I definitely will. Have you seen the Middle Edition Schwartz stuff on Netflix yet?
I haven't. So I haven't watched it yet. All right. I just, so Josh, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but me and Caleb saw them on Broadway do Middle Edition Schwartz last year. Before this.
Shit. No, I didn't.
Yeah. So we saw this shit. We saw them do like, not the show obviously because it's improv, but we saw it live originally. So now I'm like, I can't wait to watch it, but I'm tentative to watch it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not the same as seeing it live, but it's still very, very, very funny. And I don't know. They're both incredible. I think Ben Schwartz has been that. I mean, like, he definitely came up this year with Sonic the Hedgehog, but he's been just, like, bubbling under the surface for, like, a while. I like Parks and Rec. And
when you listen to this podcast and he gets into it, really, of, like, where he started, and it's so much more of the writing behind everything, apparently. It's so interesting.
I'll check that out for sure.
Speaking of redoing old projects and rewrites, can we bring up the news that hit the internet hard a couple days ago?
Josh, what news are you talking about?
I will not
Kim
read that as
Jong-un
sarcasm,
is alive.
Caleb. What'd you say, Brandon?
Kim Jong-un is alive. That's the news. You guys
they remade Kim Jong-un. They rebooted the regime.
Oh, God.
Coming to Amazon Prime in 2021.
Yeah, the interview,
but if you're going to reboot it, you got to reboot it with a lady.
All-female cast. Oh, Christ.
No, Caleb. The news I'm talking about is Zack Snyder's releasing Justice League as his cut, labeled as Zack Snyder's cut. Edit cut. Boom. Zack Snyder's Justice League cut.
Who cares?
I do. I
it's
care.
Gonna be
I'm very excited.
All you fucking nerds have been screaming for years. And you finally whined enough and you got your way and it's gonna suck. And I can't wait for it to suck.
You know what? It's called being a fan and liking things.
Yeah, Caleb.
That's what these fucking
Caleb.
mega corporations want. They want you to just be blind to the fact that this is your childhood and they're exploiting you. And none of you people...
Damn right. Blind me and point me in the right direction.
Oh my god. It's going to be so bad.
Caleb, I think what you can do is go in there with an objective mind and be like, okay, we saw one version. Didn't do so well. I get that. I even admitted it.
Yes, we did. On mic, we got Josh to admit.
That 2-hour Warner Brothers, Joss Whedon BS, what it was.
Well, I'm sorry. How do you make a Justice League movie and you don't show your bad guy? It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Anyway, so I was watching a video in terms of like kind of what, just from what Zack Snyder said in the past and what his original plans were and what we're hoping for. It's either going to be a 3.5 hour, 4-hour movie or a 6-episode, hour-long episode kind of miniseries, right? And they're filling in, background stories for Cyborg, some more Amazon and Wonder Woman stuff, and then most importantly, Green Lantern, right? So, and a lot of
who is Green Lantern in this? Who did they know? Did they say?
It wasn't. No, they didn't say. But it was like the original plan was to have Hal Jordan go up to,
I'm trying to remember. There was somebody. They did say at some point.
Do you think that they'll just have it be Ryan Reynolds again?
No, of course not. Caleb, don't patronize us, okay?
I would respect
we understand
it more if they had Ryan Reynolds just be like, "Hey, I don't know, sorry."
Ryan Reynolds is in no way the problem with the Green Lantern movie. He's still the best part of that movie. I would have no issue with Ryan Reynolds popping back up as Hal Jordan. Zero issue.
But okay, so the thing is though, they're putting back in there a lot of Darkseid stuff. So originally the plan was that Darkseid revived Superman with the anti-life formula or equation. And so he was in a black suit and they had a much longer fight and a lot of like kind of core conflict with Superman, right? To kind of bring him back to their side. Right. More with Aquaman and Mira, trying to set up the Aquaman, which will be interesting now that the Aquaman movie is out if they do some rewrites or some reshoots, because Warner Brothers did give Zack Snyder $20 million to do reshoots. So
also, we'll
see how that happens.
We're in a global pandemic and people are starving in the streets, and they said, let's give $20 million to let a fucking a frat bro, like make a fucking movie for whiny nerds on the internet. This is disgusting.
I disagree.
Jeff Bezos is making billions and billions of dollars off this pandemic, and why you're not going to shit on Jeff Bezos?
Of course. What did I say? When is it mutually exclusive? When did I not shit on Jeff Bezos? He's going to become the world's first trillionaire because he won't let his fucking workers go to the bathroom. He sucks too.
Is it? I'm sorry. I didn't realize that this is what we were doing on this show. All right.
What?
Is Paul
shitting on trillionaires, billionaires?
I've been vocal about my opinions.
Anyway.
No, not anyway.
He's been dropping in Jeff Bezos chirps the entire time.
I'm going to get assassinated.
That's so funny.
Jeff Bezos is going to fly a drone through my window.
Don't worry. Facebook is only doing WhatsApp, so it's okay.
But I bet you they cut out some of the Mira stuff now just because it sounds like they're going to fire Amber Heard.
I haven't seen any articles about that.
Dude, she's screwed. I mean, they're going to court. She's in trouble. It's really bad.
I could put a pin in that. I want to get into that because we can also re-jump into our Ezra Miller kind of discussion real quick. But what I'm saying, Caleb, is that it's going to be on HBO Max, this whole streaming thing. It's out of curiosity. I think it would behoove us to at least sit down and see what it would be or what it will be, before you kind of like, it's going to suck.
It's not like we have no idea. Like, it's the same thing with Josh Trank's Fantastic Four, right? Like, yeah, when you watch the movie, you can see the studio meddling. You can see where the vision was veered away from to make a more palatable experience for audience. But you can also see what the original stuff was. Like, you can extrapolate from what is on screen, and it's not like it's a lost masterpiece. I don't think that it's going to be this, like, grand... It's not going to fix all of the issues. It's not going to be this thing that people want it to be.
But it's the stuff I wanted to see. Like, again, like, the biggest issue for me in that movie is straight up, if as bad as it was, if you had not put Steppenwolf in there and put Darkseid in, I probably would have come out of it being like, okay, at least it's a movie.
Sure. I think my issue is all the story arcs that you didn't really get a full taste of, like, characters. And I think that's a lot of the stuff he's putting back in is all the stuff that they cut out, like because there's like 6 different characters, right? Like you introduce Flash and Cyborg, you know, and Aquaman at the time, and you get no kind of like history of them or like kind of building. You just kind of get them, and I think that's what we're gonna see a lot more of is their kind of scenes and stories and fleshing out who they are. So
it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be
but
enough, and everybody's going to be disappointed.
We'll see. The jury is out. We don't know. It's not out yet. So.
Okay, look, if I'm wrong, I will admit it, but I'm not going to be. So it's going to be fun.
You're going to admit it on this podcast.
I've been hearing that it is to be the new Shawshank. Some say.
Wow. Okay. Who said that? Wow. I'm curious. What are your sources on that?
Is that Patrick Segway?
Patrick Segway? I've never heard of Patrick Segway. What publication does he write for?
The Segway National.
Now, Segway National. Is that Canadian?
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, okay, well,
I want to talk about Shawshank.
All right, let's talk about Shawshank. We can literally go on and on and on about the Justice League, and I apologize for taking as much time as we did.
I accept your apology.
So switching gears. You're welcome, Caleb. Switching gears, I chose the number 1 movie on IMDb. Brandon, I'm so sorry. I thought it was I think Critics' Choice. Critics' Choice, I think, is Citizen Kane still. On IMDb, it's Shawshank Redemption, which when I heard that, or when I finally researched and saw that, I was like, oh shit, am I that asshole that just picked the number 1 movie on IMDb? But we also did Godfather, which is number 2. So I'm not complaining too much.
Which was also, no, that was Brandon's suggestion. Sorry.
Yeah, that was me.
That was Brandon's suggestion. So you have to request Godfather Part 2, Caleb, at one point.
I just watched it like 2 weeks ago.
I want to do Godfather, the animated series.
There you go. So Shawshank Redemption, Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, prison drama, feel good buddy, redemption story. General thoughts, opinions?
Okay, I would love to jump in. So I had, kind of seen it as a kid, but I don't remember fully sitting down and watching it. And then obviously I've seen tons of scenes. It's always on TV. I know the plot. I know the characters, but I've never fully sat down and watched it. And I sat down and watched it, and to watch it knowing everything that's going to happen in a movie like that and still come out of it as, I don't know, as amazed by that movie as I was is very impressive. Like, I knew every twist, and I was still like, this is amazing. I don't know. I was very impressed.
Mr. Caleb?
It's definitely good. It's well done, for sure. I kind of... Shawshank is like one of those movies that you're not allowed to not like it. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, what do you mean? You don't like Shawshank Redemption? It's the best movie ever made. It's definitely good. It's definitely well done. I like a lot about it. I think for me, it's very like, it's Frank Darabont, and the way that he writes, it's very, I don't want to say hokey, but I kind of do also. It's very like earnest. It's very flowery. It's very, its earnestness is kind of a little silly to me. Like some of it's a little silly.
But it makes Morgan Freeman fucking key to that movie. Right? Because I know what you're talking about. Like a lot of that narration, if it wasn't Morgan Freeman reading it and doing that narration.
Time I saw Andy Dufresne.
Right.
You're right.
It would have been so corny, but it's Morgan Freeman, so
it's pretty corny, dude. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying it doesn't work all the time. Like a lot of it. I know what
you're saying. I agree with you.
But I guess I forgot, because I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid, that like a lot of it to me feels, I think it's just so solidly dated in the year that it came out that to me, I don't know, it's quaint. It's a very simple, quaint movie, and I think if you like that kind of thing, it's amazing. It's like perfect. And there are aspects of it that I felt have aged very, very well. I do think it's long. I don't think it needs to be quite as long as it is.
Well, it's funny because it's only 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that, which is not the longest movie we've seen in this or that's out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's.
But you're saying something about the pacing probably is.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, a good movie doesn't feel long. It doesn't matter how long it is. Not that I'm saying this isn't good, but like, if a movie's like expertly paced, it can be 4 hours fucking long, and it won't matter because you're engaged the whole time. You know. And I felt there were moments that I was kind of coming out of it. I was like, oh my god, we're still like only an hour and a half in. You know. But overall, I think it's good, and I agree that Morgan is great. I like Tim Robbins a lot. I like Mr. Krabs a lot in this. It's always fun to see Mr. Krabs.
Wait, who's Mr. Krabs?
Clancy Brown, the head prison guard.
Does the voice Mr. Krabs?
Yeah, it's
Josh.
Mr. Krabs. Yeah.
That's great.
I don't know. What do you think, Josh?
Well, first, I'm kind of in the middle. I've never seen this. I've heard of it. I've always, every time I see the poster, I think of Jack on the Titanic, you know, with him standing in the rain.
They have the same hair,
I was
too.
always
That's
like,
really interesting.
I don't understand, like, that moment, but I did some more research on it, and I do kind of get it a little bit. But it is based off of, I should say first, it's 1994, based off of Stephen King's novella, Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. Which I've never read, so I have no context into like the adaptation of it. I was kind of the same way. I watched it, and because I haven't seen it, but I've heard so much about it, I was a little let down in terms of like I wasn't blown away, right? It was the first movie that a voiceover narration worked for me. Like, it's very hard to have somebody literally voice over the entire movie and make it work. And the way it was written, the way it was structured, it actually supported and helped tell the story, right? I also think that what also kind of got me was like that moment Morgan Freeman, his last time up for, you know, parole or whatever. The third time, he said, you know, it was a little predictable, but as soon as he says his piece or like he's honest with them about how he is, then he gets accepted, you know. And I'm going to go on that later because I did get a little ahead of it towards the end. But it was cool to sit back and figure out some of the stuff that they were setting up throughout the movie. Does that make sense? Like, once you kind of found out, oh, you know, the poster was hiding the tunnel or whatever, and they start explaining it, you're like, okay, now, no, I get it, you know. And it kind of is there is a really big bow tie at the end, and I felt that was kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. It was cool. I'm not gonna sit and watch it a few times, maybe once every few years. But I'm glad I saw
it's
it.
in your rotation.
Yeah, like I guess like kind of just based on what you were saying, like I didn't having like, you know, you see the Family Guy version, the Simpsons version, that, you know, you've seen it in pulp culture 1,000 times. I didn't expect to have anything pop up that I didn't know, or like, you know, to fill in more gaps. But like in that last scene when they're explaining everything, and they, you know, it comes up again about the person that he created. I was like, oh shit. Oh, that's awesome. You know, it's like the little additions like that I didn't know about before that filled it in for me, where I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, it's the reveal of the shoes and the work boots, right? Like,
right.
No shot showed his shoes, and the idea that, yeah, nobody ever really looks at your shoes. But for me, I felt it was 94, right? So it was the same year as Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction and stuff like that. And it didn't win any Academy Awards.
Which is why it
really do well in the box
tanked
office.
At the box office, because it was competing with those two like juggernauts.
That's so
wild. This movie didn't really become successful until it got released on VHS, and it was like the most bought like VHS tape in America. And then TNT bought the rights to it, and they just played it all day. Every day. Like, that's the movie that's on TNT. And so it's like so ingrained in the cultural consciousness because we've been just fucking overexposed to it. And like Brandon, you were saying, like, every, like, Simpsons and like South Park and Family Guy and everybody's like made a parody of it because of the iconography of, you know, the Christ imagery in the rain. And it's very like simple and effectively easily to parody. So I see what you mean.
But I did some of the research because I was like, why is this so prevalent with people? Like, why on IMDb is it number one and stays number one? And, you know, some people who are kind of looking at it is like, because it deals with a lot of like life lessons and a lot of the the vast majority of the population can find something to connect with to this, whether it be friendship or corruption or people being being unfair, like just redemption or like escaping or being innocent, and it's just all these things. I'm like, when you sit back and you're like, okay, yeah, John Doe in Indiana can go to this movie and love it, because he can find real connection to it. And I guess that's what you do art for,
Yeah, I mean, it's very unchallenging. I think it's easy to
it's an easy consumption. Yeah,
consume.
digestion.
But I wonder, hold on, because I wonder though. You got to remember that was 1994, right? It's very. I mean, that's for us now 100%. I don't know if that's the case back then. Like even that scene where he gets raped, where he doesn't. Like, I mean, he does, but they don't show anything. I believe was somewhat like controversial at the time.
When I mean unchallenging, I mean like it's not asking you as an audience member to wrestle with any of your core beliefs. Like, the movie is framed that there really isn't any doubt for most of the way that Tim Robbins is innocent. This is like a horrible thing that's happening to an innocent man. Prison's very difficult. It's very easy to empathize with him. And like they show you empathizing with some of these other criminals. Everybody's a really nice guy. The bad guys are clearly bad. There's no like gray morality.
Yeah.
And then there's a really nice, like Josh was saying, it's a very like you spend so much time rooting for this guy that horrible things keep happening to, and then he wins at the end in a very like fell swoop.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. Yeah. There's no moment where Tim Robbins' character like really has to do anything that's against his character.
Yeah, he doesn't have to like shank anybody in prison.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to.
Instead,
like
he gets them all beers.
Yeah, like, and then he just says like, I gave up drinking, and he's like, you're all right, friend. Like, it's like, you know what I mean?
That's why I said it was like a feel good. It's like a.
I know, I knew you would.
I loved it.
No, it's very, and then with the fiddle playing in the background, it just gives you this whole like, just this warm feeling inside that a lot of people, like to feel when they go to movies.
No, I mean, it's like escapism. And I'm not saying that doesn't have a place. Like, obviously a lot of people connect to this kind of thing. And I'm not like, I'm being like a dick. I think it's good. Like, I think this movie's good.
Yeah.
But it's also
we can all agree on that,
simple.
Though,
and I think for a movie that's as long as it is, it's difficult for me to stay engaged in something that like I know what's going to happen. It's very obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, especially with something like this. Like, I didn't know what's going to happen because I've never seen it. I'm 30 years old and I just saw it for the first time. So I didn't have that, I understand cultural references, but I didn't get it. So I actually did watch and I was like, oh, cool. So the whole ending explanation, although, now everything makes sense. I was watching it for a second time. I only got about halfway through before I had all my notes and I was like, okay, I can. I actually like turned it off. I'm like, I don't need to watch this again, because I remember what's going on. But it is a cool kind of like build, in terms of Andy's character. Tim Robbins' Andy, like he knew from the get-go he was innocent, so he's gonna start chiseling. You know what I mean? And like he needs a big poster, so to hide the hole. And yeah, I think it's very nice. It's very I would even sit my kids down to watch it, not like young kids, but I would let my
it's a family movie that anybody can enjoy.
It's just very well put together. It's very well put together. Tim Robbins I thought was fantastic. Like, really.
Do you guys know how tall he is?
He's up there. It's like
he's
6'4".
Like 6'4", right?
He's 6'5". I looked it up because there was a shot with him standing next to Morgan Freeman, and I was like, "Wait, how tall is this guy?"
I'll take that.
I always think
drink
about
of
it because Bull Durham, he's always on the mound. And he's like tall. He's young. I think he's got to be younger than Shawshank and Bull Durham. So he's like tall and lanky in it, and he's the pitcher, so he's on the mound, so he looks extra tall.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tim Robbins gave a very like restrained performance, and I think it's subtle enough that when you see his moments of him kind of freaking out, like when he does get emotionally, it's very like, he did a good job. And obviously everybody loves Morgan Freeman. Did a good job too. You know that the studio wanted Tom Cruise instead of Morgan Freeman?
I thought it was Tom Cruise instead of Tim Robbins.
No, there was another, who I forget who the other person was but I'm almost positive they wanted Tom Cruise. And I don't know. I don't think that character's written that has to be one race or the other. But I think that Morgan Freeman obviously did a much better job than Tom Cruise would.
Morgan Freeman was perfect. He's so good.
For sure. And then even...
Everybody's innocent in Shawshank.
And I think I keep going back to that narrative and that like very, Stephen King writes very well. He's a great writer, and you can kind of tell in how they kind of adapted his, I don't know how much, Caleb, I don't know if you've read the novella, but how much that translated from his actual novel writing short story to the script.
It's
screenplay,
interesting.
But the way the narration sounded, it seems very poetic.
Well, I think I think it's the core is Stephen King with like Frank Darabont flourishes. I would say this is probably like, when you consider what King's like vibe is as a writer, this is probably like one of the least Stephen King-y stories that he has written. You know what I mean? I think people think of like It or The Shining or like Pet Sematary, any of these like crazy like horror stuff. And this is very much more dramatic. It's from the same collection as The Body, which is what Stand By Me is based on. So that's like kind of those are like outliers.
The Wholesome collection.
Yeah. Stand By Me is great.
Stephen King said that this was besides Stand By Me, this was the closest, one of his favorite adaptations of one of his stories.
Well, I think it's easier to adapt a drama than it is to effectively adapt a horror. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a reason why the most popular of it's like this and Stand By Me and The Green Mile, like these things that are like, they have adjacent to that stuff, but it's definitely more about the emotional core of the characters and their journeys. And I think that's harder to empathize with if you're not into horror movies already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Ryan loved the first part of the new It, like the first chapter 1.
Part 1's great.
He said that it was pretty part 1 was like really good.
But part 2 is a big stinky pile of doo-doo.
I know.
It's not good. Which sucks because Bill Hader is actually pretty amazing in it.
He's amazing in everything. He's the best.
But like specifically, all of the acting is actually pretty good. You have like James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain. These like great actors, and they're trying really hard. But then the rest of the writing.
Did they get the sea turtle in it?
They don't get the sea turtle, and there's no child orgy either. So,
dude,
0 stars.
You always go there every time.
That's in the book. It's a controversial thing in the book.
Part of the book.
I get it.
And then Andy Muschietti is like, yeah, we are going to do it raw, and it's going to be very brutal. And it's like, are they going to do it? Because it's like, I know that you can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you saw, if you were like in an audience and you saw that happen on screen, you'd be like, this is fucking morally disgusting and reprehensible. And you'd be right. But like, I just think it's interesting that like, we can stomach child murder and torture and all of these like other horrible things. But it's just interesting where people draw the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Especially when you're talking about a fictional world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's nuts. So Stephen King is awesome. But so we're saying is that Shawshank as a movie, as like a collective, let's say you're studying filmmaking, right? I think this would be on the same grounds as, I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but, in my screenwriting class, we actually studied Chinatown with Nicholson, because in terms of a formatted kind of screenplay into a movie, it's very easy to follow the different parts of a generic screenplay to write, right? And I feel like this movie could be something, be done the same way in terms of either directing or cinematography or kind of, world building and shots and things like that. So I think it is very simple story-wise, but it's still effective.
All the pieces fit really well together, for sure.
Yeah.
Very palpable blueprint.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a breakout movie, right? The emotional stuff is added in. If you're writing it, you got to imagine that short story, like the way it was originally written, is very much like just laying the pieces for all the capery stuff
Yeah, I mean, the story's 96 pages long.
Right. So it's like, you gotta, like, so much of that has to be like, and he asked for the rock pick, and he asked for the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he got the poster, and he got, like, so much of that has to just be setting up the pieces.
Yeah, and I feel, but like, I think it's great though, because I don't know, because I haven't read the novella, but the ensemble, the characters in the play or the movie itself, really all kind of fit, especially with Hayward, you know, being the guy who gets the fatty guy to cry, but he ends up dying because they're awful to people.
That was a really good moment.
And then, but with Andy, with Brooks, I fucking loved Brooks. You know, and I actually really loved his story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for a character that only appears for what, 15 minutes, if that, you know, from the baby Raven in his pocket to have it to like wanting to try and like get in trouble before he leaves just so he can stay in there, because the guy's been in there for 50 years. You know, he has no other life than the prison life. He's been institutionalized, as Red says. And then he goes out into the real world and he's like, because this was the time period of the movie was the 50s, I think, when Brooks got out. So essentially he's been there from like 1900 to 1905, I think he said he got into prison. So 1955. And like he's the character has this moment of like, yeah, no, I saw one automobile when I got into prison, or before when I got in prison, and now they're everywhere. You know, everything's so much faster, and he's like trying to adapt, and then he ends up hanging himself because he just can't. He even says like, I'm thinking about shooting the manager, you know, get a bonus to kill the manager, but then I at least could go home. And I felt that was very, you know, I have no way to truly empathize with what he's saying, but I can definitely empathize with the loss of home and not being a part of something that you've been so used to, you know, the routine. You know, some people go to prison. I know this is a very small minority, but you know, it's a roof, it's a bed, it's, you know, meals, right? So like
3 hots and a cot.
There are people who in the real world they just don't have anything, and you go into prison and they give, you know, you have all this stuff. So it's,
yeah, I think that's a little bit romanticized. I mean, this situation's more like the idea of them getting institutionalized, right? Being there for so long that they don't know how to live in the outside world.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
Especially in a time period of such rapid like progress in technology. Mm-hmm. Like you were saying about like the thing with the automobile. I think the Brooks stuff that's the aspect of the movie that I think has always stuck with me. Like watching him fail to assimilate and then end up hanging himself is, I think, a really, really effective moment. And it might be my favorite moment in the movie. It's really powerful stuff. And yeah, I agree. It does have this, like, I think, you know, as a result of the effect of trying to appeal to like the most amount of people and be really palatable, like it does, Josh, have this like, not like romanticized version of what it's like to be in prison, but like almost kind of that way. Like you contrast this directly with like something that came out 5 years later, which is Oz, which is like this horrible, brutal, it's like a nightmarish, like awful fucking place. And then in this movie, like, yeah, like prison's bad, but like, you know, it's like, oh, but I've got my gang of friends and like, we're all gonna drink beer on the roof together and it's gonna be like magical. Yeah, exactly. You know, I got Morgan Freeman. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little
it's almost
like,
got like it's almost got like it's like Oz, but it's like the Little Rascals.
Yeah. It's like the Little Rascals were in Oz. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's like this guy, the warden, you know, rules with an iron fist in the Bible, essentially, at the beginning of the movie. And then all of a sudden he's able to bring like, you know, there's like posters and cigarettes just come and go and come through the place. And it's so easy to get stuff in there because cigarettes, if you have a cigarette, you can do anything in prison, you know, and like, and all of a sudden, you know, because Andy's like in good graces with the warden, he goes, there is some, you know, paraphernalia, but we're going to let it slide. I was like, okay, you know, like there's a naked woman on essentially whatever that poster is. I forget that poster that every man had in the 70s.
There was Rita Hayworth and there was Marilyn Monroe and there was Raquel Welch. I think those were the 3.
Raquel Welch was the last one, I think, with like the Tarzan looking bikini.
And there she was.
You know what I was thinking about?
There she was.
I like that poster for our generation was definitely Megan Fox in Transformers. I feel like.
Sure. Yeah, I can.
Right.
I can see that. Yeah.
I had I remember in college. I had the Spring Breakers poster.
Oh, that was a good one.
The four, like Vanessa Hudgens and Ashley Benson and Selena Gomez. Oh my god. I definitely had that poster. That movie's not that good, but I had that poster.
The posters that I had were just movie posters from the movie theater I worked at. I actually got the one of two Why So Serious posters when The Dark Knight came out.
I have
was
one
able
of those too.
to swindle. I was able to swindle the poster that was given to the movie theater. It's
Those
in my
are the
parents'
best.
house. I still have to somehow get it over to New York at some point. But yeah, no, there's definitely this, like, that's why I said it's like a buddy prison drama type of thing. Because once they're all comrades, you know, and they're all fighting. But
Yeah, it's a little goofy.
did Andy try and get any of them else out? Nope.
Though that
He
was
was
the,
like, "Fuck
you know,
you guys, I'm out of here."
the only thing that I thought they could have taken a little bit. I wish that there had been a little bit more time in was introducing the kid who comes in. I just wish that like he'd been around a little longer, so it wasn't so obvious that he was put there just as like a plot point.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was good
I
still.
was
like,
gonna say, like, he's only used for that plot point,
Right.
right? The reveal of the
Yeah.
information.
and it happens
Yeah.
very quick, so it's very hard to ignore. It's still great, and they still do a good job building that relationship. I just, as soon as he comes in, you're like, okay, so you killing or you dying? What's happening? Like, what are you doing, this
Right.
character?
Well, because it's like already an hour 45 minutes into the movie that
Right.
he comes in, and you're like, okay, well, why do we need this Danny Zuko? You know, as
That's
soon as he comes
immediately
on the
what I
bus,
thought
I'm like,
of too.
go grease lightning, you're burning up the quarter of a mile.
Ultramatic.
He did a great job as well, though.
I think that's an issue also. I mean, I totally agree. It's like, oh, here's like, what's the next thing to... But I feel like that's the whole movie. Like, I don't feel like it's the rest of the movie's that seamless. Like, I feel like every scene is like, it's very like, and here's the next thing we need to make the plot go. And like, it's very like obvious in that way. And I think, again, that it's like appealing to large groups of people. It's like, so that,
Yeah.
you know, everybody can track what's happening, and it makes you feel good when all the pieces are there. Because, like, I don't know. I know that they do, like, their job in the movie where Tim Robbins is like, you'll see, it's really funny when you see the rock hammer. It's very small. And then, but the posters, and it's like, yeah, all right. Like, he's out, but, like, come on. You know, the poster is him in the fucking rain. Like, you know, he breaks out. But,
Yeah, but I didn't know. I had never seen the very, very, very last scene. Like, I 100% thought that last shot ended just on Morgan Freeman, and they never showed you Tim Robbins. So I always thought that it ended open.
Well, it's funny because
it's interesting.
that was the original ending.
Josh sniped my trivia.
Sorry, I knew.
Which
you go,
one?
Caleb. You go.
This was the original or the other one?
The ending that Frank Darabont wanted was Morgan Freeman on the bus driving away.
Okay. That's what
Credits.
I thought it was always.
And then the studio was like, yeah, but you gotta make it happy because people like to feel good. And so they fucking shot that shit on the beach, which is like, whatever. Small thing. It's been years since Andy escaped, right? Why is he this is as far as he's gotten? He's only
just found a boat.
He hasn't done anything. He hasn't worked on anything else. He hasn't gotten any other work done.
He's relaxing.
I was hoping
where does he live?
But no,
he's rich. He stole all the money.
I feel like
which is like $3 million, I think, adjusted for
Yeah.
inflation. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, he's loaded.
So why does he still look like
Here's
a
the
bum?
thing, though. Because he's doing that hippie thing. I don't know. I feel
it was a
that
rushed
I would have at
reshoot.
least.
That's why.
I would have loved to him be like coming into like the hotel, right? Like he at least would have had the hotel, you know. So have Morgan Freeman come to the door. I would have done that shot. That's what I would have done.
No,
but no, yeah.
I like
so
it being more
definitely
ambiguous.
I would have done the exact
Because it's
shot
not
from Dark Knight
about-
Returns.
It's not about them finding each other. It's about Tim Robbins helping Morgan Freeman rediscover hope. So, like, by having it end in when he's, like, on the bus going, like, that's thematically what's important. We don't have to see them hug and it's like, oh, my best friend! Like, you know what I mean? It's, like, cheapens it a little bit, I think. That's just me.
It does.
Well, and you know, because that hugging shot is like a helicopter shot, you know that they're just dicking around so hard because there's like, you know, like.
Well, because
what are you
the
gonna
movie
do?
was finished, like the final shot on the beach was not planned ever, so they had to go back and like get everybody and be like, "Hey, okay, so we're gonna do
Well,
this
the
shot."
whole shot is just okay, hug each other, cool. Good work, guys.
I wish they just started like steamy kissing each other. Like they just start like really going at it. You know what I mean?
I mean,
That would've made it
nowadays,
Yeah.
that's the movie.
I
I've
do
been
have
waiting
a
a long
question
time
though.
for
The
this,
only thing
Andy. I'm gonna take what's mine.
I hate you, Caleb, so much with your impressions. No, I love you, man. But so the what I was gonna ask though is the whole thing about the name, right? Because Tim Robbins' character Andy, he says, "Oh, I created this whole persona so that if they ever do investigate the warden, it all goes back to this person,
Mhm.
right?" And so it kind of gets built. So it's kind of like this ghost, you know. And yes, it was a good reveal that I'm going to use that name because he has a social security card, he has driver's license, whatever, for him to take that money because it's his account. But couldn't the warden vindictively like show him all of the stuff? Like, wouldn't he use that against him? So like,
It doesn't matter. He went to Mexico.
If the cops,
he's gone.
If the cops investigate,
but he's gone. He went to Mexico.
Okay.
Because he's a fugitive anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, he escaped prison, but also like he gave the bookkeeping and the ledgers to like the news and the police. So like the warden can say whatever he wants. There's tangible evidence that he's been laundering money and like evading taxes for a decade.
Also murders.
And also murders. At least one murder.
Murders too.
So he's like, yeah, I'm
But my
fucked.
question is though,
myself.
like, wouldn't the guy's character, the thing that Andy made up, wouldn't he be then liable now if he's going under that, or is he now Andy again in Mexico?
I mean, I think he has $3 million and he's living in nobody lives on this island. Like, I think he's just hiding.
Yeah, I think it was just to get the money out of the bank accounts and just to have a passport to get across the border. That's it.
Yeah.
And now he's like living off the grid.
Because again, it's like what by that point, by the time he's out, it's the 60s.
Yeah,
it's been 20
late
some
50s.
years,
yeah.
So it's not like anybody's really tracking you that well. You get in your car, you're gone.
Sure.
Yeah, they didn't have the tools. They were trying to figure out who shot JFK. Like they're like, we can't worry about this one guy. They say that in the movie. Morgan Freeman's like, and just around the time that Kennedy was shot.
Okay, well, think about this. If in The Winter Soldier they say that Bucky killed JFK,
can we do one episode that we don't talk about this shit?
No. But
or in the X-Men when
they say that's what I'm getting to.
When Magneto is like, he was a mutant, he was one of us.
Right. So if both of those are true, hold on. If
what
both
was
of
his
those
fucking
are true,
superpower? He can attract bullets with his brain.
Then Bucky beat Magneto by killing JFK. That's what happened that day.
No.
Think about it.
I refuse to think about it.
I did read somewhere that people were analyzing this movie as like a lot of Christian mysticism like undertones to it, and I just rolled my eyes.
Wait, what?
Nothing against, religion and faith and things like that, but I was just reading like the analysis of it because I really wanted to know more what about this movie really hits home with people, and people came up with this conclusion that it's like the warden is Satan and Andy is like Jesus, and I'm just like,
I mean, I think that it's definitely impossible to ignore that stuff. Like, it's interesting because Frank Darabont has gone on the record saying like that wasn't my intention, but like I want people to be able to engage with the film on their own terms and take away what they do from it. I think that there are a lot of parallels to Christ's story, especially when you consider that there is like so much of the Bible is like interwoven with like, the dialogue and the action and the themes, and you have the shot of him. I mean, like, Christo Redendor, like Christ the Redeemer, like he has in the rain. Like, I think it's disingenuous to say that like all of that is invalid because it's definitely interwoven into the text of the film.
I think that kind of comes with any time you're venturing into the territory of a movie that is basically and very clearly good versus evil, right? Anytime that you're venturing into a movie like that, where your main character isn't really moving over to the dark side, or it's just good and bad, and good's gonna fight bad, it's pretty easy to put that set of overtones on it,
Definitely. Yeah, no, I get that.
What do you guys think the redemption is? The titular redemption?
What?
It's called the Shawshank Redemption, right? So like, who's
What do you
being
guys think
redeemed and for
Shawshank
what?
means?
Shawshank was the name of the prison.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
You're not understanding my question. What is the redemption?
No,
No, I
he's
can't
making
even
another.
question.
He's doing another question on top of your question, so he doesn't answer your question. No, the redemption I feel is kind of getting back at the warden and stuff. You know, he took it. I don't know.
I mean, the obvious thing, would be to say Andy, but the more interesting thing is, Morgan Freeman's character, and by the time he gets to his third parole meeting and gives his whole, beautiful monologue about, no, I haven't changed, and, the whole thing. That's that redemption as well. Oh, what was the word they kept, I don't know, redemption of being institutionalized? He breaks free of that.
But like, so redemption, I think the way I understand it is like, you have to come back from doing something, like you have to make up for doing something bad, right? But like Andy was innocent the whole time. So, it doesn't really like count. Like, I don't think that qualifies. But I agree that because the movie is framed through Morgan Freeman's POV, that I think.
By the way, what I meant was I didn't mean redemption like redemption as in, they just get out of jail. When I said redemption of institutionalized, I mean, he's convinced that he's one of those people that has been institutionalized and can't live outside. He has that whole conversation in the second act. So he gets, he finds that in him.
You're talking about Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you
that
I
his
think
own mental box.
Because the movie's like framed through his POV, he's the one who is rediscovering, because he admits, he's like, I'm the only guilty man in Shawshank. Like, I murdered somebody,
right,
and I've been thinking about it for 40 years. And through meeting Andy and rediscovering, like, getting back in touch with humanity and finding hope again, he's the one that ends up. But it's interesting that shot then of like Andy Dufresne, like in the rain and washing, like that's a very like washing the sins away. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just interesting because he didn't do anything wrong.
Man.
He was innocent.
Didn't do anything.
I
feel we can go back and forth. I just thought it was really funny because I knew, like what Caleb, what you were saying about how ahead of it we all were. It's as soon because it's like in threes, right? The first two times he just tells them what they want to hear and he gets rejected. And of course, the one time he actually sits there, and I think it was one of the best moments in the movie.
Yeah.
In seeing Morgan Freeman act and just kind of go there, it's just like, yeah, and he delivers his monologue and speaks from himself and his own experiences, and they're like, cool, acceptable. We'll bring this guy who knows that he's guilty back in the society. There we go.
Also, just like a great use of the rule of three. Just a great use of it.
One of the classic examples.
Even though even though it's predictable, it still works. Ryan was telling me last night, we started watching the morning show on Apple TV, and I'm kind of getting into it. I'm watching it, and Ryan tells me, he's like, "You're such a good barometer, of consumer base, right?" Because although might be a little bit more educated in the acting, directing stuff than
just watch
most
a bunch
people
of
in the United
superheroes.
States. But they, but watching it, Ryan's just like, it's so he just can't deal with it, right? He's just like, I mean, he's enjoying it now that we're doing the characters, but he's like, it's so obvious. He's this person, she's this person. They're going to do this, and it's like such an obvious tool, a vehicle for this platform. And I said, sure, but what about this moment? And everything works on me. I don't know why Joshua Stir here. Everything works. If you do it well, if it's set up right, if you're supposed to have somebody feel a certain way, I'll probably feel that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm very susceptible to everything.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I do have a critical eye. I just don't...
You just don't listen to it all the time.
Sure. Or if it works in my direction when I'm creating something, and if it affects me, it'll affect 95% of the people in the audience.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just also feel like sometimes I think you guys are really generous. But I am too on different things. We all have our biases and we all have our things that we prefer, over other things. Like there's no right answer or right way to talk about any of this stuff.
It's also just
no, not at all, which I love.
It's also like it's not that black and white. I mean, there's talking about a movie, and then there's purposefully like we're breaking down movies. We're talking about them analytically. You have to, go into it at a certain point with a critical eye. That's do you know what I mean? It's not like it's not that binary that it's just like, oh, well, like we're being negative or being positive. It's like no. From talking about it in a way of like I enjoyed it, and then a way of like okay, but then here's the nitty gritty of it. Yeah. That's all.
Right. I think you still
other
have
than A Knight's Tale, which is the best movie, and fuck you guys.
All right.
I do think
it works.
No,
it totally works.
It's false.
In that moment,
it's bad.
I do feel that there is a level though of going in, like even though you do criticize movies and things like that, and you may have a notion that being able to kind of sit back and just receive is also, I think, a thing that we can all kind of go into. Like this whole, the Justice League thing next spring. It's like, huff and puff, grab yourself, some tea or some water or whatever, and sit down with a candy bar and just sit for, a little bit. And once you're done, you're done.
If that's what you go into an experience looking for and you get that, that's totally fine. If all you want to do is just be passively entertained, nothing wrong with that.
Especially with everything going on right now, it's kind of fucked up. So any kind of escapism, and this is why we do arts and movies.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I have no high ground because I like hardcore stan Pacific Rim, like to the max. I will like defend that movie to anybody. And that's considered like a garbage movie that nobody likes.
I really want to have this conversation because well, no, but because we literally watched through Neon Genesis Evangelion together. So how do you stand Pacific? I mean, it's just not. It's so frustrating in that it's not what it could be, especially Pacific Rim 2.
Well,
like the fact
I don't count. I'm not talking about Pacific Rim 2. I'm talking about Pacific Rim 1.
Okay, because I mean,
yeah, no, Pacific Rim 2 is not okay.
But I mean, the stuff that they touch on, which is done so well.
The reason I like Pacific Rim is because it was made by Guillermo del Toro.
It's fun as shit.
And you can tell that he is very, very passionate about genre films, about robots, about all of like anime, like all of the influences. It definitely wears them on its sleeve, but it's done with such earnestness and like reverence. And yeah, it's like fun as shit. Like I can't knock it because it's coming from an honest place. It's not like those
Charlie Hunnam is the man.
It's not like the Transformers shit that's made very from a cynical, like, an eye that's not made from somebody who cares. Like, this is a guy who really, really is passionate and cares about this stuff, and he wanted to make the most fun movie possible. And it's not fucking perfect. There's like, but like, that
I like
moment
the first one a lot.
Where they fly into the space and they use the sword and cut, like, it's like my jaw hit the floor. It's so cool.
But Caleb, how upset were you in the second one when you're like, oh my god, are we doing this? I don't count the second one.
I don't count the second one. The second one is a studio mandated sequel. It doesn't have any of the same original creatives. It's not the same thing.
No, but they just took Evangelion and touched on the best parts and we're like, you know what? No.
Yeah. Well, the mainstream audience is not ready for Evangelion. And it's actually interesting because they like redubbed it for Netflix and then a lot of people were like, wow, the anime is like fucked up, I guess. And I've been here since fucking 2004 being like, oh, I've been known.
Dude, I didn't realize because that was the only anime I'd ever watched.
Yeah, you were talking about this, yeah.
So I just thought that was what it was. That was the only one I ever watched as a kid. And then no, that's the most fucked up one.
Yeah. That one's on the other end for sure. I would love to see a Shawshank Redemption anime.
What is the anime that is like identical to Inception? What is that?
Oh, it's called Paprika. It's a film. It's very good. Satoshi Kon.
I mean, Inception actively took stuff from that, right? They even have the shit like the hallway running scene in that, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. There's like a bunch of stuff
Not in a negative way. I mean,
but it is. It's very like, very similar. I think that Christopher Nolan makes it his own enough that it avoids like outright stealing from it. But there's definitely a lot of inspiration was lifted from that for sure.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
But we can talk about anime forever. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about Shawshank?
I think it's funny for a movie that's number 1 on IMDb amongst the people, you know, it was kind of just like the movie. It was a simple, very clean, like this is what the movie is, you know. I don't have anything. I did enjoy it. I'm glad I have seen it, so I can walk around amongst the populace, you know, and say, "Oh yeah, I know that movie." You know,
I liked it.
So I got nothing.
I liked it. I'm giving it 4.5 rock picks out of 5.
I'll give it a 4.5 as well.
I will give it a 4.
He is.
That's one of the best, most highest rated ones we've done. All right, Brandon, what are we doing next?
Well, that depends if we're continuing with the Stephen King thing or not.
It
was just an idea if we wanted to.
Do you guys want to?
If we're going to start, because after the next 2, if we don't, then we're going to start doing cycles in 3, like with a theme. And I thought, you know, there's enough good Stephen King shit out there, or bad. We can do whatever, but enough good ones that I think it'd be fun to kind of compare and contrast. But
I'll leave it up to you, Brandon, because I have a pick for either way.
So do I. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep with the Stephen King thing, but this is not the most Stephen King-ish movie. I just, it's supposed to be not great. I haven't seen it and I want to watch it. I've read the book. They fucked with it really hard apparently. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I want to watch, The Dark Tower.
No! Why are you doing this to me?
The Dark Tower.
You're a garbage person, and I don't. We're not friends.
What were you thinking? What did you think I was gonna say?
I was pulling for Dreamcatcher, honestly.
Nah.
Okay, Dark Tower it is. You fucking
Dark
asshole.
Tower,
I figure if Shawshank is like supposed to be his best movie, The Dark Tower might, you know, be the other side of the spectrum.
It's you. All right. Okay.
I can't wait. So it's set out here on the podcast. So much. It's set in stone. We have a Dark Tower episode coming next week.
I'm actually mad.
Hey man, I'm not the one who said let's do Stephen King.
Yeah, I guess
we're still recording. Do you want to change it, Brandon, or were you?
No,
you're
let's do it. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
It'll be good. It'll be a good conversation.
It'll be nice to do a bad movie. All right, guys.
It's been great. Like House, or Purple Rain.
Purple Rain. Purple Rain.
Purple Rain.
This might dethrone Purple Rain as the worst one that we've done.
I'm excited.
I can't wait. All right, that was 3M Affairs on Shawshank Redemption. Such a great conversation. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there and hanging out on this Friday morning.
Don't be afraid to rediscover hope.